The honourable member for Brossard-La Prairie will have 6.5 minutes when the House, for his speech, when the House comes back to this issue.
Statements by members. Déclaration de député, the honourable member for Pickering, Scarborough East.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to pay tribute today to Canadians of Serbian descent on the 211th anniversary of the Statehood Day of Serbia. It is a day that commemorates the struggle of the Serbian people to regain independence and sovereignty, as well as the first constitution proclaimed on the same day in 1835. Serbia, Canada's great ally in World War I and World War II in the Balkans, is today a dynamic democratic society firmly engaged on its path toward full European Union membership, an undivided commitment to democracy, respect for human rights and the rule of law. A sizable Serbian community lives in Canada today, and they are now successfully integrated into the Canadian way of life. One has to do with a respectable and outstanding group within the Canadian society, noteworthy for its prosperity and contribution to the Canadian society. They are also a very important bridge between Canada and Serbia. Today, I invite all honourable members to join me in congratulating Serbia for its Statehood Day. God bless Canada and Serbia.
The honourable member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, today is Louis Riel Day, and I call upon this 41st Parliament to finally set the history books straight and exonerate Louis Riel, reverse his conviction for high treason, and instead honour and commemorate his role as the founder of Manitoba, a father of Confederation, and the champion of minority rights and the rights of the Métis people. Louis Riel was a hero, not a traitor, and it is now generally accepted that he was wrongly convicted and executed for high treason, murdered by the Crown in a sham trial in a case of both justice and mercy denied. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure all of my colleagues in the House here today will agree that it is consistent with history, justice, and respect for the Métis people that this Parliament use its authority to reverse the conviction of Louis Riel and to formally recognize, honour, and celebrate his true role in the building of this great nation.
The honourable member for Don Valley East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of my constituents of Don Valley East and to all of the members of St. George's Coptic Church in my riding, I was horrified to learn about the beheading of 21 Coptic Christians in Libya by ISIL. This massacre adds to a list of atrocities and shows us and the world how the genocidal ISIL is. From sexual enslavement of the Yazidi women and to the burning alive of the Jordanian pilot and beheading of foreign hostages and the persecution of many other minority groups. It is simply unacceptable to civilized people. The savage acts in different geographic locations show us that this ideology and their threats are spreading like a cancer. This is a group that has no human decency and no regard for human life. As the Prime Minister has stated, Canada is proud to stand with its allies in the fight against ISIL. We will continue to stand firmly together against these terrorists who threaten the peace and freedom as we hold so dear at home, and we wish to have for those abroad. Barbaric acts such as this do not shake or resolve, but rather confirm the rightness of...
The honourable member for Vancouver Quadra.
Mr. Speaker, 48 years ago today, Liberal Prime Minister Lester Pearson officially established the Royal Commission on the Status of Women based on the concept of equal opportunity for women and men. The Royal Commission played a major role in defining the status of women as a legitimate and important social and economic issue and gave a platform for women's voices. The Commission's groundbreaking recommendations on childcare, pay equity, prohibiting gender as ground for discrimination, and other matters sadly remain relevant today. Women's equality has taken a step back under the Conservative government's regressive policies, which have put the brakes on important momentum to close the gap in Canada. Alors que nous commémorons
As we commemorate this historic anniversary and the progress made by women over the decades, we must remember that there is still a great deal of work to be done to achieve true equality.
Far we have come, but also commit to equality of opportunity for all Canadians.
The honourable member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last weekend, health officials in Ontario confirmed 3 new cases of measles, bringing the total number to 11 in Ontario alone. These outbreaks are a direct result of parents not vaccinating their children. A 2013 United Nations report found Canada's immunization rate had dropped in recent decades to 84%, well below the 95% required for herd immunity, ranking us 28th out of 29 industrialized nations. This drop in vaccinations is putting children and vulnerable persons at risk. Older Canadians well remember the death and disability brought about by preventable diseases like polio, diphtheria, whooping cough, and measles. Vaccines are safe and effective. All 3 of my young children have been vaccinated, not just for their sake, but for the sake of the young, the sick, and the elderly in our community. Mr. Speaker, I encourage all parents to consult with their family doctors and to ensure that their children's vaccinations are up to date.
La députée de Notre-Dame-de-Grâce.
Honorable member for Notre-Dame-de-Grâce-la-Chine.
In joining my fellow Canadians across the country to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the National Flag of Canada. Since its inception, the national flag has become a source of pride, a symbol of unity, and a powerful emblem of the Canadian identity. This celebration is a unique occasion that should be used to reflect on the progress we have made throughout history, to understand our past, and to renew our commitment to serve the best way we can our country and our people. Drapeau rouge et blanc, en son centre, on identifie.
Our red and white flag has a majestic maple leaf. It was designed by Canadians, and its purpose is to promote Canadian values of democracy, liberty, and rule of law. Since it was adopted in 1965, it has been recognized internationally as a representative symbol of these same values. On this occasion, I would like to commend Canadians who took part in the various celebrations across the country to celebrate its 50th anniversary.
The honourable member for Quebec-Mactaquac.
Mr. Speaker, it seems fitting as we celebrated Valentine's Day this weekend that we also remember that it's Heart Health Month and also National Potato Lovers Month. We should not forget the importance of the humble potato in our diet and the significant levels of potassium in potatoes that are critical to our body and crucial to heart function. Just this last week, Agriculture Canada research stations in Fredericton and Lethbridge conducted their annual Variety Release Day. The research at these 2 locations is important as we develop new varieties that not only are resistant to pests, but also attempt to make the potato even healthier. Canada has a great number of agricultural producers and growing regions in our country, including a large area of my riding of Tobic-Mactaquac. We also have processors like McCain Foods that produce 1 of every 3 French fries sold around the globe. Everyone is working hard to produce high-quality food for Canadians in addition to healthy choices for our diets. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank our researchers, our farmers and farm families, and processors like McCain's who continue their efforts to have a dynamic value chain for potatoes in Canada. Mr. Speaker, while we may not be able to give our hearts to the humble potato, it sure can give a lot to our hearts.
The honourable member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Mr. Speaker, recently I visited DFO's regional headquarters in Sarnia to recognize the men and women who serve in the Canadian Coast Guard Auxiliary, a nationwide organization that helps to ensure the safety and security of our waterways through its vital work. I was very pleased to announce over $5 million in funding to support this group. The value of the work done by the CCGA across Canada cannot be overstated. Each year, its more than 5,000 members carry out over 2,000 rescue missions and save more than 200 lives. It was an honor to acknowledge the tremendous work of Sarnia's 14 active members across the region. Regardless of weather conditions, members of the Point SAR unit brave the elements for the safety and well-being of mariners from Sombra to Kettle Point. That's why our government is proud to support them and provide them the funding they need to conduct their work. On behalf of all Canadians, I thank the Coast Guard Auxiliary for their tremendous service.
The honourable member for Windsor West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I rise today to celebrate and to thank Ontarians for their participation in Family Day today, where mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters can get together, celebrate a day that is important for the unity of the family. Now, unfortunately, in this House, in this chamber, Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives have chosen to attack families by putting back the legislation, work legislation, which attacks families on safety, on values, and on benefits. And unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, we need to see those things improved in our country because we have men and women that go to work every single day that have those conditions challenged for them, and they deserve to go back home to spend the rest of their night and the next morning with their families. So Family Day should be celebrated with benefits to workers because that's benefits for Canadians.
The honourable member for Yukon.
road to recovery. Bringing in higher taxes and higher debt is not the path that we believe Canadians want to be on. And unfortunately, for the Liberal leader, not all members of his party support his carbon tax scheme. Last week, the Yukon Liberal leader, Sandy Silver, said Yukon Liberals do not support a carbon tax for the territory. It's no surprise, Mr. Speaker, that Northerners have been clear that they can't afford higher taxes. The Liberal leader has been clear, though, that he'll bring back a carbon tax which will lead to higher taxes for Canadian families and raise the price of everything from heating bills, gas, and groceries. Mr. Speaker, unlike the Liberals, we believe that we're going to stand with the people of the Yukon and the North, and that bringing in a job-killing carbon tax is reckless. Unlike the leader of the Liberal Party, we'll never punish Canadians with higher taxes and job-killing schemes like a carbon tax. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Vaudreuil-Soulanges. Unfortunately, the respect and protection of official languages have never been a priority for the Conservatives. Since 2006, the Conservatives have appointed unilingual individuals to key positions such as Auditor General and Justice on the Supreme Court. And now the Prime Minister has just appointed a unilingual English-speaking minister to the portfolio of Foreign Affairs. That's just right. A Minister of Foreign Affairs who does not speak French, the language of diplomacy. Even the Americans have a Secretary of State who speaks French. There is little that is more shameful than a country with French as an official language. This shows how little respect the Conservatives have for the bilingual nature of our country, and especially for Francophones. We in the NDP will continue to promote the respect of both official languages, and I can assure you that the next Minister of Foreign Affairs will be bilingual under an NDP government. Thank you.
Member for Mississauga, Arundel.
Mr. Speaker, I think I can speak for everyone in this House and across Canada when I say that we are outraged and deeply saddened by the ruthless beheading of Egyptian Coptic Orthodox Christians in Libya by groups linked to ISIL. This is sadly yet another example of the very real threat that ISIL poses, and the barbaric extremes to which they will take their war against the values we proudly uphold, such as religious freedom. Mr. Speaker, we are proudly standing with our allies to combat the threat these jihadi terrorists pose to freedom. As the Prime Minister said, barbaric acts such as this do not shake our resolve, but rather confirm the rightness of our cause and the vital necessity of our mission against ISIL. We will not be intimidated.
The Honourable Member for Westmount Ville-Marie.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in the House today to express our deepest sympathy to the Coptic community here in Canada and around the world for the senseless murder of 21 Coptic Christians in Libya over the weekend. This is just the latest attack in a long series of horrific killings by Daesh, a genocidal group which perverts the very religion it purports to uphold and which has directed violence against other religious minorities living in the regions such as Assyrians, Chaldeans, Syriac and Armenian Christians, Yazidis, Druze, Shabaks and Mandeans, as well as Shia Muslims. En tant que minorité religieuse,
as a religious minority, the Christian Copts have often been victims of persecution, and yet they have lived side by side with their Muslim neighbors for centuries, and they will continue to survive these atrocities. Such actions will only reinforce the determination of those who are fighting the Islamic State. Members of the Coptic community should know that we share your grief and that we stand with you in these difficult times.
The Honourable Member for Newmarket, Aurora.
Mr. Speaker, while the NDP and Liberals want to impose a job-killing carbon tax, our Conservative government is delivering the largest tax break in Canadian history. Under our plan, 100% of families with children will have more money in their pockets to spend on their priorities as a family. Wow. Through our new tax breaks, the average benefit for each of these families will be more than $1,100. Mr. Speaker, we assured Canadians that we would lower taxes and put more of their hard-earned money back in their pockets. This is exactly what we're doing, and we will continue to do.
The Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
A week ago, the Liberal leader proudly announced one of the most embarrassing floor crossings any of us have ever seen. He claimed he was impressed with the member from Mississauga-Brampton South's, quote, commitment to public service. Well, his caucus wasn't impressed. And now, Mr. Speaker, we have the return of that famous source, Liberal MPs, speaking on condition of anonymity. One Liberal MP said, quote, the larger population just got another message saying the Liberals are no different than the Conservatives. Another, that the leader of the Liberal Party just made the Prime Minister look principled. And what did the Liberal leader get in return for all this? Why, none other than new Liberal strategist Dimitri Soudis. This Liberal leader once said, quote, when you start to compromise your principles, you're through. Indeed, without principles, what kind of leader are you? Well, we just found out. But fortunately, Canadians can count on the NDP, our leader, for principled leadership that fights for the middle-class families of Canada.
The honourable member for Desnethé, Mississippi Churchill River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under the strong and responsible leadership of our Prime Minister, our government will balance the budget and put money where it belongs, into the pockets of hard-working Canadians. Our family tax cut enhanced universal child care benefit and will give 100% of families with kids an average of over $1,100 per year, with parents receiving almost $2,000 per child, which they could put towards their priorities. But, Mr. Speaker, the Liberal leader will reverse our tax cuts and will do exactly what the Liberal Party elites want to do and always do, raise taxes for ordinary Canadians while handling money over to the bureaucrats. Moms and dads don't need to be told how to spend their money. Despite the NDP and the Liberals who have positioned themselves against middle-class families, I am proud that our government is giving money back to each and every family with children in Canada.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The honourable member for Hamilton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, we all hope the new discovery of BSE in Canada is an isolated case. The disease once devastated our agriculture industry, and there's huge potential for serious economic problems. South Korea has already moved to close off beef imports. Can the minister tell the House if the source of the illness has been found and what assistance has been offered to ranchers and farmers?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Well, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, but not unexpectedly, another positive case of BSE was found in a cow in northern Alberta, Spruce Grove area, I understand. The continuation continues, or the expectations of the farm and CFIA are that they will source this out. They're doing that right now, Mr. Speaker, according to the international protocols that we all adhere to.
The Honourable Member for Hamilton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, what producers want to know is that the government will have their back in the case of a crisis. Maintaining the confidence of Canadians and our key trading partners is essential to the creation of economic opportunities for our beef producers. We all remember the slow reaction the first time BSE hit Canada. Swift action is needed this time. What is the government doing to reinforce consumer confidence?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Of course, Mr. Speaker, the glacial speed was the other party over there in the corner. Having said that, we continue to work with CFIA, with the farm that's under quarantine at this point. We also put forward in their latest budget some $200 million to enhance our BSE trading, and that party voted against it, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Hamilton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, if Conservatives hadn't rammed through back-to-work legislation in 2012, we might not be seeing a strike at CP today. Yet Conservatives are again blindly moving toward a one-sided back-to-work law. Current negotiations are focused on rail safety issues, things like extreme driver fatigue caused by scheduling practices. Now the American Union is warning of U.S. engineers being forced to work in Canada, operating trains with hazardous materials on routes they aren't familiar with, creating very real safety concerns. Can the minister confirm if this is true?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary and Minister of Transport.
What I can confirm, of course, is that Transport Canada's role is to ensure that the qualification standards for locomotive engineers are consistently followed. Railway companies have to ensure that those who operate trains are fully trained. And Transport Canada increases its field monitoring on locomotives during a strike to verify, in fact, that crews are qualified to operate the equipment and can do so safely.
The Honourable Member for Hull Aylmer. According to the American president of the Brotherhood of Locomotives and Engineers and Trainmen, American train engineers would be forced to drive dangerous freight trains over Canadian routes. Can the minister tell us if it's true that Canadian Pacific has access to American replacement workers without regard to the safety of Canadians? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Question, different language, but the same answer. And Transport Canada's role, what I can confirm, is to ensure that the qualification standards for locomotive engineers are followed. Railway companies have to ensure that those who operate trains are in fact fully trained. And Transport Canada increases its field monitoring on locomotives during a strike to verify that crews are qualified to operate the equipment and can do so safely.
The Honourable Member for Hull Aylmer. By governing through the use of a truncheon, the Conservatives are ensuring that important issues are not being resolved. The safety of Canadians is at the heart of the current negotiations. The train drivers are proposing solutions in order to deal with extreme fatigue. With the Conservatives' heavy-handed bill, all of these kinds of issues are being swept under the carpet. Why does the government refuse to admit that Canadians' safety will not be achieved through a negotiated contract? Parliamentary Secretary.
You know that fatigue management plans must currently be submitted by railway companies to Transport Canada for their oversight, Mr. Speaker. But Transport Canada, of course, increases its inspections during labour strikes, Mr. Speaker. But what's important here to remember, of course, is that the economy must be protected as well. And does the member opposite believe that we should actually be taking some important action to ensure that the economy keeps moving forward?
The Honourable Member for Saint-Laurent-Cartierville.
Speaker, quote, throughout this country we have a very, very large infrastructure deficit on things like public transit, water, transportation and housing. We've got to fix these things. With the federal government, I'm not confident they'll make the right decisions. Mr. Speaker, I'm quoting the mayor of Calgary, recently voted the best mayor of the world. Will the Conservative government reverse these wrong decisions, like their 87% cut in the Building Canada Fund?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of Infrastructure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And of course, we know that that statement is incorrect. This Conservative government has introduced the largest and the longest infrastructure investment in Canadian history, $75 billion, Mr. Speaker, over the next decade. This includes $53 billion for municipalities, provinces and territories. Mr. Speaker, our new Building Canada plan has been open for business since last March. In less than a year, numerous projects already approved, representing an estimated $5 billion in infrastructure for this country.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Laurent-Cartierville.
Is not wrong and my numbers are right.
That's right.
Voici les chiffres officiels.
Here are the official figures. The budget of the Building Canada Fund was $1.6 billion in 2013-14. In 2014-15, it is $210 million. From $1.6 billion to $210 million clearly represents an 87% cutback. It is obvious. Will the government admit that it cannot deny these figures? They're the official figures of the Department of Finance. A cutback of 87% for the Building Canada Fund. The Conservatives have to admit it. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I appreciate that the Liberals have a hard time understanding the bottom line, Mr. Speaker. Let me make clear what the bottom line is in terms of infrastructure investments in this country. If they read just a little bit lower on that page, Mr. Speaker, they will clearly see that this government will be investing between $5 and $6 billion in infrastructure investment every year, Mr. Speaker. These investments will enhance our economy, they'll create jobs, and they'll improve the quality of life for all Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Laurent-Cartierville. This is verbal inflation, what my colleague is saying, Mr. Speaker. The specific figures are the following. Not only was the Building Canada Fund cut by 87% in 1 year, but on top of that, the bulk of the investments in the fund will only be available after 2019. So the fund is spread $14 billion over from 2014 to 2023, of which $10.2 billion, that is 73%, is not available before 2019. Why is the government delaying 3/4 of those investments to 2019, whereas we need those investments in jobs now? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
This Conservative government will take no lessons from the Liberals on infrastructure investments in this country, Mr. Speaker. Our investments are 3 times greater for infrastructure than the previous Liberal government. So let me very clearly lay out the steps in this process, Mr. Speaker, and I'll speak slowly for my Liberal colleagues. Applications to the plan are submitted. When projects are approved, federal funds are earmarked. Then construction begins. Then the municipality submits their bill to the federal government. We reimburse the municipality as costs are incurred. Money flows over the course of the construction project, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Squamish-Waundafuka.
Mr. Speaker, experts have raised serious concerns about the impacts that C-51 could have on legitimate dissent and peaceful protest. This bill creates a new definition for activity that undermines the sovereignty, security, or territorial integrity of Canada. Now, this includes terrorism, but it also includes interference with critical infrastructure and interference with government in relation to the, quote, economic or financial stability of the country. Will the Minister please explain what activities are targeted by this provision?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, it's very clear that it is important in terms of terrorism to act on all levels, from prevention, as soon as a person wants to become radicalized and head that way, it's important to give information and tools to our intelligence officials so that they can intervene before something happens and reduce the risk of terrorism later. The Honourable Member for Alfred-Pellan. The fact that the Prime Minister has decided not to answer important questions regarding this bill does not inspire any confidence. Canadians deserve to know all of the details of the Conservative bill. Bill C-51 would broaden CSIS's powers beyond intelligence activities to allow it to disrupt terrorist acts before they have occurred. We've repeatedly asked, Mr. Speaker, can the Minister give us one single example of activities that will now be authorized? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. After 30 years, Mr. Speaker, the Intelligence Service needs to have tools to ensure the safety of the Canadian population, particularly in terms of threats. So while respecting Canadian laws, we will do this, but there are legal implications here. The intelligence services will have to get a warrant and a judicial authorization for anything they want to do. And another thing I'm looking forward to hearing is the NDP's position. We know that terrorist threats can be manifested in several ways and for many reasons. The Halifax conspiracy, which was brilliantly thwarted by the RCMP last weekend, is a great example. Many were surprised, however, when the minister said that this was not terrorism because there were no cultural grounds. Does the minister understand that the definition of terrorism in Canada includes political, religious, and ideological grounds and not cultural grounds? Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for her question and also for the important work that was done by the Halifax Police as well as the RCMP, because they were able to thwart a Valentine's Day attack and they deserve all of our recognition for that. Having said that, on this side of the House, when there is a serious attack that has been thwarted, we don't get bogged down in definitions. We recognize that it was a terrorist act. Are the NDP ready to recognize this?
The Honourable Member for Hamilton East, Stony.
Mr. Speaker, on Friday, Canadians were pleased to see the Canadian journalist Mohamed Fahmy was released on bail after more than 400 days in an Egyptian prison. But this is not the end of Mr. Fahmy's ordeal. Instead of coming home, he now faces a new trial. Australia's Prime Minister personally and repeatedly spoke to the Egyptian President to secure the release of his citizen, Peter Grest. Why hasn't this Prime Minister done the same thing for Mr. Fahmy?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, while we welcome Mr. Fahmy's release on bail, we remain deeply concerned about this case. We continue to call for his immediate and full release. And my colleague opposite knows that the Prime Minister has personally raised the issue of Mohamed Fahmy with the Egyptian President. The Minister for Consular Affairs, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs have raised the case as well, as have our officials. And so, Mr. Speaker, we will continue to do that, and we are optimistic that this will be resolved.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's allies have issued new sanctions. It's time for Canada to send a stronger message and do more than just tell Russia to get out of Ukraine. Canadian sanctions still omit key members of Russia's business and political elite, despite the fact our allies have listed them. I have a simple question for the new minister. Why are Igor Sechin, Sergei Chezimov, and Vladimir Yakunin not being sanctioned by the Canadian government?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
The honourable member may have missed this, but Canada has been a leader in the global response to Russian aggression in Ukraine. I mean, in addition to our military NATO assurance measures, we placed sanctions on more than 210 individuals and entities. This is more than the United States or our European Union allies. And we've announced over $500 million in assistance to Ukraine. We stand with Ukraine, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue to do so with or without the support of the NDP.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, it's not an issue of the number of people. It's an issue of targeting the right people. The truth is that this government continues to spare those closest to the Putin regime. For example, the United States sanctioned 3 oil barons who were also working in arms and transportation, but the Conservatives continue to spare them. Can this government explain to us what the point of economic sanctions is if we don't hit them where it hurts? Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
We are doing, Mr. Speaker, and nobody has been tougher on the Putin regime than this government, Mr. Speaker. And so the honourable member wants actions. Let her just examine what this country has done. And, Mr. Speaker, just a couple of weeks ago, I was in Munich, and President Poroshenko made a point of thanking me for Canada's contributions and said how much he appreciates what Canada has done for Ukraine. That will continue.
Mr. Speaker, whereas Canada is a bilingual country and that French is an important language in international diplomacy, we cannot understand how the Prime Minister could have appointed a Minister of Foreign Affairs who cannot communicate in French. How is it that how can the Prime Minister explain that he was unable to find a bilingual Minister of Foreign Affairs in his cabinet, whereas, for example, even the American Secretary of State speaks very good French? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the Prime Minister for my appointment. It's a great honour for me. We have 2 official languages in Canada. I don't speak very well right now, but I understand very well, and I'll continue to make efforts. The Honourable Member for Gatineau. It seems as being present at the wedding of the Minister of Justice means that the guests would have a better chance of landing a job as a judge rather than catching the bride's bouquet. Both his best man and his best man's wife were appointed judges to the Supreme Court of Nova Scotia, and since he was appointed justice, and Attorney General of Canada in 2013. He's appointed 9 judges in his province, and 6 of them are Conservative organizers or friends. Will the Prime Minister finally put an end to this despicable patronage that undermines the credibility of justice? Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
First accused the Minister of Justice for appointing these eminently qualified individuals to the bench based on political affiliation. As the member opposite should know, candidates are vetted by the Judicial Advisory Councils, and it is upon their recommendation that all appointments are made. The Broadbent Institute would be better spent investigating the inappropriate use of tax money to fund the NDP regional operations across Canada.
The Honourable Member for Timmins, James Bay.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let's look at this theme of the Nova Scotia judicial appointments. They tend to go to people who are invited to the Justice Minister's wedding. Now, Joshua Arnold, the best man, got appointed to the Nova Scotia Supreme Court, and his wife got appointed too. Oh, no. Other nominees read like buddies of the minister and party donors. Now, judicial appointments are supposed to go to the most eminently qualified. So why is it that at other weddings they toss out the bouquet, but here they toss around nominations to the court?
Secretary to the Minister of Justice.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Speaker, all members know that candidates are vetted by the Independent Judicial Advisory Councils, and it is upon their recommendation that all appointments are made. And, Mr. Speaker, our judicial appointments are based on one criteria and one criteria only: whether that individual is qualified for the job, determined on merit and legal experience.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver, Quadra.
Mr. Speaker, this government is clipping the wings of Canada's Air Force, compromising their ability to train and to protect Canadians. Search and rescue helicopters and most aircraft are spending more and more time grounded in order to pinch pennies. Why? Because the Conservatives are using defence budget cuts as a giant piggy bank to fund their election tax goodies, like the $2 billion income-splitting tax break for the wealthiest Canadians. Will the minister restore D&D funding and stop the broken promises to Canadians and to the women and men in uniform?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
First, Mr. Speaker, let me say, as I rise in this place for the first time as Minister of Defence, what an honour it is to serve our uniform. Mr. Speaker, I begin this mandate proud of this government's achievement of rebuilding the Canadian forces with a 28% increase in funding. From the decade of darkness to the Liberals, Mr. Speaker, just last Friday I was at CFB Trenton. I saw some of our new C-17 Globemasters. We acquired 4 and a 5th is coming, allowing us to project Canada's reach around the world. 17 new Hercules Series J tactical airlift. 17 new Chinook helicopters. Mr. Speaker, we will not return to the decade of darkness.
The Honourable Member for West Melville-Marie.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, the government has assured us time and again that the Prime Minister had communicated with the highest levels of the Egyptian government concerning Mohamed Fahmi's case. My question is very simple. Did the Prime Minister personally speak to President El-Sisi? And if so, when?
The
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I already answered that question. The Minister of Consular Affairs, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Prime Minister, our mission, our officials have all raised this issue of Mr. Fahmy, and we will continue to do so. And as I said earlier, we expect and look forward to the resolution of this case.
The Honourable Member for West Melville-Marie.
I'll take that as a no, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Australian Prime Minister spoke directly to President El-Sisi on 3 occasions in an effort to secure the release of Peter Greste, efforts which ultimately proved successful. Our own Prime Minister appears to have made no such effort in the case of Mr. Fahmy, arguing that Mr. Fahmy's dual citizenship complicated matters. As far as we know, Mr. Fahmy is no longer an Egyptian citizen. Why is the Prime Minister not doing all he can to secure the release of Mr. Fahmy?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I pointed out, we continue to call for his immediate and full release. The Prime Minister has personally raised the case with the Egyptian President. The Minister of Consular Affairs has raised this issue. The former Minister of Foreign Affairs has raised this issue. Our officials raised the issue. We're going to continue to do that, and we expect that there will be a resolution of this case.
Honourable Deputy Manicouagan.
Honourable Member for Manicouagan. With federal ministers finally getting set to sit down at the same table with the provinces, territories, and Aboriginal leaders to talk about the crisis we have on our hands, with 1,200 missing or murdered Aboriginal women, we now learn that the Minister for the Status of Women failed to consult key groups like the Native Women's Association of Canada before launching her so-called action plan last September. Why is the Minister refusing to heed the calls from these groups to launch a national inquiry? The Honourable Minister.
It's simply not true. I met with the president of NWAC and actually with numerous organizations, both privately in my office with my Status of Women officials and also with families across the country. What is the most important here is what families are looking for, and our government is taking action to make sure that women are safe and secure, that they are protected and supported in their time of need.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing.
Mr. Speaker, families of the over 1,200 women and girls that have disappeared or been murdered in Canada deserve better than this government.
Yes.
They deserve to see real action to get answers. They deserve a genuine consultation process where their name will not be used without their knowledge or consent to shore up an action plan that offers nothing but the status quo. Will the minister apologize to the individuals listed that were not consulted? Yeah. And when will she finally listen and act on their ask for a national inquiry?
The Honourable Minister for the Status of Women.
Mr. Speaker, as I just said, I spoke with numerous families across the country, and those families actually asked to be confidential. I spoke with numerous organizations across the country and was delighted to get their input so that we could move forward. What families are looking for are action. They were very clear. Make sure that we're supporting these individuals. Make sure that we're protecting them. Make sure we prevent these actions from happening in the future. The time now is for action. Unlike the NDP, who want to vote against initiatives we take to protect these women, to make sure they're supported, we're acting to make sure that they are treated appropriately.
The Honourable Member for Nickel Belt.
Mr. Speaker, a CN freight train hauling 100 cars of crude oil derailed Sunday morning near Gogama. Reports indicate 7 cars caught fire and oil was spilling out. People in nearby communities are concerned and want answers. Has the cause of the derailment been determined? Is oil still leaking, and is the fire now under control?
The Honourable Private Secretary of the Minister of Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And first of all, we are obviously relieved to hear that there were no injuries as a result of this particular incident. For the benefit of this House, they should know that the Minister's Office has reached out to the local Member of Parliament and will continue to provide updates on the incident in question. I understand, of course, that the Transportation Safety Board is on scene and others. Mr. Speaker, we will let the proper authorities determine the cause of this incident.
The Honourable Member for Brossard-la-Prairie. Mr. Speaker, in December there was another derailment, this time in Alberta. By her own admission, the 25-year-old conductor said her training of just a few weeks was inadequate. 2 weeks ago, the Transport Minister said, quote, "It's up to CP and CN to ensure that they are training to the acceptable standards. If they do not, we will indeed ensure that they do this in an appropriate manner." Is the Minister going to take responsibility and see to it that railway workers get adequate training to protect Canadians' safety?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not sure where the member was when the government gave its response to the Transportation Safety Board's report into the tragedy at Lac-Mégantic. Mr. Speaker, this was one of the action points that the department, of course, has committed to, including important blitzes to see if there are any gaps in the training competencies of railway companies, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Mississauga-Streetsville.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday we learned of more barbaric attacks against Coptic Christians by ISIL. 21 Egyptians who had been held for weeks have reportedly been beheaded in a video released yesterday. Would the Minister of National Defence be able to update the House on Canada's continued mission to fight the savage ISIL death cult in Iraq.
Well done. The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
First, Mr. Speaker, the Government of Canada condemns in the strongest possible terms this barbaric mass murder committed by the death cult ISIL. This morning I called the Coptic Bishop in Canada, Bishop Mina, to express our condolences, and this reinforces the reason why Canada is engaged in the fight against ISIL in the Middle East. Last Thursday, Captain Forget from the Joint Operations Command stated that ISIL has suffered a number of tactical setbacks and is pressed on a number of fronts and is struggling to sustain its military efforts, thanks in part to the airstrikes of the Royal Canadian Air Force and the great work of our Special Operations troops, who we strongly support.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Last week, the Mont Mégantic Observatory almost closed its doors because of the incompetence of a Conservative member who neglects his riding and isn't keeping on top of his files. But the problem goes deeper. Ever since the Conservatives cut support for science, it's been harder and harder to maintain our research infrastructure. Is the Minister responsible for science finally going to get involved in the file, which is so important to the Lac Mégantic area, and make sure we don't have to go through this same crisis 2 years from now all over again? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have made investments, record investments in science and technology.
Speaker, we have great respect for the victims of Lac Mégantic. Our commitment to science, technology, innovation is unprecedented in this country and will remain so under this government.
The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Mr. Speaker, I don't think the Minister understood the question. The Mont Mégantic Observatory doesn't just show us the stars in the sky, it also shows the incompetence of the Minister of International Development, who didn't see this crisis coming when his own government sowed the seeds for it 2 years ago. Instead of blaming scientists and management, the Minister should admit his government caused this problem by changing the funding criteria for NSERC. Will the Minister get down to work now and find a permanent funding solution for the observatory? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me say with respect to the observatory at Lac Mégantic that as it relates to observatories across the country where we have made significant investments, that we are committed to the importance of science and technology both in Quebec and throughout the country. And we will take no lessons from that party when it comes to our commitments, science, technology, and innovation.
The Honourable Member for Louis Hébert. Mr. Speaker, last week the Prime Minister made a showy appearance in Quebec City. Apart from his little dance at Carnival, once again he had nothing concrete to offer, nothing for the tall ships, and nothing to move forward on the Quebec City bridge file. In fact, it was pathetic to see the Prime Minister signing a Valentine's Day card for the Quebec City bridge. In politics, as in love, sooner or later, all the fancy talk has to be backed up with action. This Prime Minister promised the people of Quebec City that the bridge would be repainted. Is he finally going to deliver the goods? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, the government made a commitment to spend $75 million on repainting the bridge. Together with the other levels of government, the funding will amount to $100 million for this important project. We call on CN to step up and spend the additional monies necessary to get the job done. The Honourable Member for Quebec. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has to stop hiding behind CN to justify his own inaction. Does the Prime Minister understand that we don't want his signature on a Valentine's Day card, we want it on a check to deliver everything he promised? Mr. Speaker, as the owner of the bridge, CN is responsible for its maintenance and security. The government committed to spend $75 million, and together with other levels of government, there will be $100 million put toward this important project, and we call on CN to step up and provide the extra money needed to complete this project.
Mr. Speaker, last year the presidents of China and the United States personally agreed to 10-year visas for tourists and business travelers from both countries. Meanwhile, Canada's out in the cold, at great cost to Chinese Canadians, the tourist industry, and Canadian jobs. Will the government immediately enter into discussions with China to get the same treatment as the United States? That is, 10-year reciprocal visas for visitors and business people.
The Honourable Minister of Citizenship and Immigration.
Chinese visa policy might well be addressed to the Chinese government. For our part, we are giving much better service to all Chinese citizens coming to Canada since we began to clean up the Liberal mess in this area, Mr. Speaker. We have visa application centres across China. Chinese citizens received over a quarter of all the visas issued by Canada in the world last year, Mr. Speaker, and the vast majority of those were 10-year multiple entry visas.
The Honourable Member from Markham, Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives have pursued yo-yo diplomacy with China, hating China when they boycott the Olympics, then loving China when the former Foreign Affairs Minister refers to China as an ally. Is it not this incompetent, erratic policy that explains why the U.S. gets 10-year visas and Canada gets nothing? At this time of goodwill, as we usher in the year of the sheep, will the government approach China on 10-year visas today?
The Honourable Minister of Citizenship and Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, we're in touch with the government of China on this as on many other issues because we're making huge progress with them on immigration issues, on trade issues. We've grown trade and investment well beyond the levels achieved under the Liberals. And, Mr. Speaker, there's approved destination status for tourist groups coming to Canada. We've multiplied the number of direct flights from China. There is service without visas for Chinese citizens transiting into the United States. Mr. Speaker, this is a huge record of achievement that all Canadians should celebrate.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil, Pierre Boucher. Mr. Speaker, when I add up all the petitions here with about 2,000 signatures, yesterday there was a gathering in Montreal. I wonder if the minister is doing his job. Lots of artists like Paul Pichet, Ariane Moffat, Michel Rivard, to name but a few. These people, does the minister at least understand the message that people who coming from people who oppose the dismantling of Radio-Canada? There should be a light coming on the minister's dashboard. The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Despite his little jokes, the government is already funding Radio-Canada to the tune of over $1 billion annually. $1 billion. A number of times I've told the House what we expect from Radio-Canada, and that is to promote programs that Canadians want to listen to, both in English and in French, and that is why they get $1 billion a year. The Honourable Member.
Our Prime Minister talks about the employees of Radio-Canada CBC. Canada is at the bottom of the OECD when it comes to spending on public broadcasting. The bottom. CBC's announcement they are slashing their budget and cutting hundreds of jobs is raising concerns over the survival of the CBC. While Conservatives are turning their back on public broadcasting, people across Canada are rallying in support of the CBC. When will the minister finally listen to citizens? It's true in my area, my friend. The NDP leaders put a practical plan to save the CBC. When will they listen and correct?
The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Thank you, and I'll repeat what I said in English. That member knows very well that we provide CBC with over $1 billion every year, and we expect that they will honour their mandate under the Broadcasting Act to provide quality programming in French and English to Canadians. But I find it strangely odd that the NDP would be suggesting that we actually take money away from taxpayers as we provide a universal childcare benefit to give it to an organization that gets over $1 billion a year. That's what I call irresponsible, and we won't be going down that road.
The Honourable Member for Etobicoke Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada continues to stand stalwartly in solidarity with the people of Ukraine. Our government has been very clear.
Vladimir Putin must get out of Ukraine. With today's reports that pro-Russian forces are not respecting the ceasefire and that the EU has imposed further sanctions, can the Minister of Foreign Affairs please update the House on the next steps that our government is taking to support Ukraine?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
To indicate the pro-Russian forces continue to shell Ukraine merely hours after the ceasefire came into effect. This is clearly unacceptable, and we will continue to judge Vladimir Putin by his actions and not his words. The fact is that this conflict will end only once Russia halts its invasion, withdraws Russian armed forces, and stops aiding those so-called rebels. Soyons clairs, nous n'accepterons jamais.
Let's be clear. We will never accept this pro-Russian invasion.
Prepared to coordinate with our allies and to take additional steps. We will support Ukraine.
The Honourable Member for Malpeque.
Mr. Speaker, let's come back to the Minister of Justice, who seems to believe that judicial appointments under his purview are to place friends into high-placed, high-paying jobs. 9 judges appointed, 6 as friends. His best man at his wedding, his best man's wife. 2 past Conservative vice presidents of riding associations. Former vice president of the Nova Scotia PC Association. Friend from law school. Why the ethical lapse, Mr. Speaker? What happened to integrity in terms of appointing judges? Or is the minister just exercising patronage heaven for his friends?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, perhaps the honourable member doesn't know how the judicial appointments process works, so I'll help him out. Every person that applies for judicial appointment must go through judicial advisory committees in their area. It's only upon the recommendation of those committees that persons are appointed to and they are independent, are appointed to the bench. And, Mr. Speaker, our judicial appointments are based on one criteria and one criteria only. That is whether the individual is qualified for the job, determined on merit and legal excellence.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. The Conservatives would do anything to win an election. In 2007, they promised to invest $300 million and create 500 new positions at the Bagotville base. No new infrastructure has been announced to date, and instead of 500 new positions, only 250 soldiers have arrived. Will the new defense minister keep their election promises and free up the funding for the Bagotville base? The Honourable Minister of Defense. Mr. Speaker, over the past 3 years, we've invested about $7 million to maintain infrastructure, and a new squad, expedition squad, has been set up with 230 new staff and more arriving in 2015 to support that squadron. And I should add, Mr. Speaker, that the NDP has voted against all our additional investments in the armed forces. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord.
No, Yukon. Yukon, sorry.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal leader doesn't understand the North or the needs of Northerners. First, he went on what he called a Northern tour, but he forgot to go to the Yukon. He also said the Yukon doesn't have party politics, even though it's had politics like that for decades. He must have been shocked then to hear that the Yukon Liberal leader actually exists and that he opposes the federal Liberal Party's carbon tax because it would be harmful to Yukoners. Can the Minister of the Environment please tell this House how our government is doing, what work our government is doing to help Northerners keep more of their hard-earned dollars in their pockets? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you. I'd like to thank my colleague from the Yukon for the hard work he has done in representing his constituents. We will continue to stand up for Northerners and all Canadians, while a rich Southerner with a trust fund may have no issue with implementing a new carbon tax. We oppose reckless policies such as the carbon taxes, which would raise the cost of living for Northern families. Instead, we are taking concrete actions to make life more affordable for Northerners. Our tax relief measures includes reducing the GST and the universal child care benefits, which will put cash directly in the pockets of parents. We will continue to oppose a job-killing carbon tax that will raise the price.
The Honourable Member for Thunder Bay Superior North.
Mr. Speaker, our cities have crumbling infrastructure. We're the only G20 country with no national housing strategy. The feds have downloaded for decades onto the provinces, and the provinces onto the municipalities. So when will the Conservatives stop subsidizing undertaxed multinational corporations like Big Oil and start working with mayors to invest in critical infrastructure like public transit, municipal housing, and important projects like the proposed event center in Thunder Bay? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, that's precisely what we're doing. We have gone ahead with the longest-term, largest infrastructure program in the country, together with the provinces and municipalities. The Canadian Federation of Municipalities was involved at every step of the way. $75 billion has been invested or will be invested over 10 years in new infrastructure. The Honourable Member for Saint-Laurent-Saint-Michel. Mr. Speaker, the free trade agreement is currently being debated and will have a huge impact on small and medium-sized businesses if they're not prepared. No concrete steps have been taken for SMEs to prepare them for the deal to take once it takes effect. Will this government have a strategy to mitigate risks related to international trade? Can the Minister for Small and Medium Business explain why SMEs are being left out in the cold to fend for themselves? The Honourable Minister.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, the member actually didn't mention which trade agreement he was referring to. But I would say this, if he would have followed our government's actions, he would know about a year ago we released Canada's Global Markets Action Plan, which identifies the priority markets that matter to Canada, which identifies the priority sectors of our economy that matter to Canadians, and puts a special focus on small and medium-sized enterprises, which the member referred to. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we take our obligations to Canadian small and medium-sized enterprises seriously. That's why we've embarked upon the most ambitious trade plan Canada has ever seen.
The Honourable Member for Haute-Gaspésie, Métis-Matane-Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers had the courage to hold a non-partisan debate on the right to die with dignity, but the federal government has always refused to recognize the National Assembly's legislation. Every time Ottawa said that the criminal code applied. This bogus excuse no longer holds water because the Supreme Court just struck down the provision prohibiting terminal patients from putting an end to their suffering. Now that the criminal code can no longer be used as an excuse, will the Justice Minister commit to recognize and respect the Quebec legislation? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
This is a very sensitive issue for many Canadians with deeply held beliefs on both sides, and we will study the decision and ensure that all perspectives on this difficult issue are heard. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Haute-Gaspésie. Mr. Speaker, instead of helping people who lose their jobs and are going through tough times, the federal government's doing the opposite and acting like a bully. A public inquiry last week showed that instead of helping claimants get what they're entitled to, officers at Service Canada are being encouraged to use practices that discourage the unemployed from even claiming EI. So it's hardly surprising that a record number of people are not qualifying for EI. When is the government going to treat these workers who lose their jobs like people who deserve respect instead of people to be fleeced? The Honourable Minister. First of all, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Prime Minister, my constituents, and all Canadians for the opportunity I've been given to serve Canadians in this portfolio as Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, our system is very generous to the unemployed. We endeavor to provide them with the benefits they're entitled to, and we are reducing wait times, and we will continue to do so. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For today, the Honourable Member for Ottawa-Orleans is rising on a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, on February 6th, the Leader of the official opposition in the House presented a point of order against me. You will find it on page 11,171 of the Hansard. In his intervention, the leader claimed that during question period on that same day, I had made disobliging and unfortunate remarks with regard to the member for Beauharnois-Salaberry. He is right to say that I know what is appropriate and what is not.
Opposition leader for raising this matter. When he did, I was in the public gallery above him with the hard-working president of the Convent Glen and Orleans Wood Community Association. I wasn't aware of what I might have said to so offend the sensibilities of the honourable member for Burnaby New Westminster. So I looked in the blues and didn't find my intervention. Obviously, whatever I said caused so little fuss that the keepers of the official record ignored it. Pourtant, je me souviens d'avoir réagi.
And yet, I remember that I did react to the preamble of the question of the member for Beauharnois-Salaberry. She said that the Government of Canada, which is so skillfully led by the current Prime Minister, had cut billions of dollars in health transfers. Now, given that we had actually increased these transfers by 68%, $14 billion, I cried out, which is something I rarely do.
This leader drew my rare heckling to the Speaker's attention. It is now printed in the debates of the House of Commons on page 11,168. I am unreservedly contrite for having used the Lord's name in vain. It was an unconsidered intervention. I had never done this before, and I will not do it again. I seek your forgiveness, Mr. Speaker, and that of the House.
I have the deepest respect for the member for Beauharnois-Salaberry and for her education in the area of teaching, and that is why I was surprised by the lack of rigor in the preamble to the question that she put on February 6th. She deserves to be presumed in good faith, and I have no doubt that when she asks her next question...
Order. I think the honourable member has made his point to the House, and the House doesn't seem to... Is this on the same point? The honourable member for Burnaby New Westminster is rising.
Mr. Speaker, you'll recall on that date in question that the Speaker himself said that he would follow up with the member from Ottawa-Orleans and make sure that he gave his excuse, his apologies, to the member from Beauharnois-Salaberry. That has not been the case, and I think through you again to the member from Ottawa-Orleans, he should be standing, he should be apologizing, and he should be withdrawing his remarks, and that is all he should be doing. And the member from Beauharnois-Salaberry is owed an apology.
Well, this is the first day back since the incident happened. I will look into it and come back to the House if necessary. Tabling of documents. Dépôt de documents. I wish to inform the House that in accordance with the representation made by the government pursuant to Standing Order 55-1, I have caused to be published a special order paper giving notice of government bills and motions. I now lay upon the table the relevant document. Dépôt de documents.